Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm going to start this video out with the more interesting part of the video, which is what I am hoping to read next, because this month has been all over the place, very messy, a lot of school assignments, a lot of random things I've undertaken for seemingly no reason at all. But I do have a pretty planned out month ahead of me, some of which consists of readings for school, but also a lot of stuff I'm hoping to do in my free time. So I'm going to start with those. First is a book I've been wanting to get to for a long time. It's a collection of novellas and short stories by William Gass, somebody I've really wanted to read. I've read some of his essays, and he's just a really prolific writer. I'm really excited for The Peterson Kid, which is the first story here. If you've read any of his stuff, let me know. I fully expect to enjoy the heck out of this. He's a kind of, he just has a very dark, distinct, interesting, unique way with words that from the small stuff I've read of his, there's like a 5-page story in here that I read once about bugs or something. I honestly forget, but I'm really excited to get to that. Another thing that I think is kind of similar, not similar, but I do get similar strange vibes from their writing, is Karl Ove Knausgaard. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, but my mouth does not work the way that Norwegian words go. So this is The Morning Star, the first of 3 books in his The Morning Star series. The most recent just came out. I think it's called The Wolves of Eternity. This is something I've wanted to get to for a while. This is 670 pages, and it's going to be very difficult to read in the midst of everything I have going on, but I know I'm going to be way busier in the coming months after, so I've decided to read this with my girlfriend, which I think will hold me accountable. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this one. And I've had it on my mind for a long time. Another book, which I've already read bits and parts of, is Original Sins by Eve Ewing. The Miseducation of Black and Native Children and the Construction of American Racism. She is going to be in Madison in maybe, I think, like a week. Less than a week. And I'm really excited to see her talk. I'm a huge fan of her. I really love the parts of this book I've listened to. I've listened to some podcasts and stuff where she talks about it as well. It's really interesting. Would recommend. I hope to get kind of all the way through it before or just after hearing her talk. And maybe I'll write a little bit about that as well. And then the last personal book I have, which will probably come, I'll probably be doing videos on all these books before I get to this one, but this is The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai, which I've just decided, I didn't kind of say I was going to read it at the beginning of the semester, but I've just decided I should, because for one of my courses, you kind of have to do a creative remediation project at the end, so I'm going to write a short story centered around 80s, probably in Chicago, AIDS crisis, and that's literally what this is, and I thought it gave me a good excuse to, you have to do a lot of research, and obviously I'll be doing like actual research, but I think this will be interesting as well, because that's basically what this is centered around, and it gives me an excuse to read this book, which my dad's been telling me to read for a year at this point, and I'm a big fan of hers. And then for school, okay, this is going to be a lot, but most of my writing deadlines and things like that are coming up in the next week or so, so I think I will have time. If not, I will make it. So for school, My Government Means to Kill Me by Rashid Newson. I'm starting this in a week for a class of mine. I'm really excited for this. I think it takes place in 50s New York. This is the same class that I'm doing the short story for, and I think it's a similar, like, very historically researched. It's a recent book, but takes place in the 50s. I've heard good things about that. I think all of these are going to be really stellar reads. And then the other one I'm finishing up is kind of poetry / prose poems. It's called Citizen, an American Lyric, which I'm actually going to discuss a little in this video. And I've already spent too much time on these books that I have not even read yet. So let's get into February reads. I think A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, which is fantastic so far. I am 5 chapters in. That's what I'm going to spend most of this time talking about because I love it. But I finished these books over here, so I'll touch on them real quick. The Price of Salt, or Carol, by Patricia Highsmith. Finished this book, watched the movie. I like the movie a lot. It was with Cate Blanchett. And I will say the book got a lot better after page 100, which I said in the last video or 2 videos ago. I was kind of hoping it would. It did get a lot better. Obviously, she's a very talented writer. I think the ending wasn't what I hoped for. Or not what I wasn't hoping for anything, but it wasn't as interesting as it could have been. But you have to understand why she kind of wanted to wrap it up in a happy way, which may not have made sense considering the detectives and being on the road, being chased, all these different, lawsuits coming at them. You would think that it would end in a less happy way. And I realize that's a spoiler as I'm saying it, so usually I try and warn, but sorry, this does end in a kind of happy way. But with most of the lesbian fiction that was coming out in the, when was this, 50s, 40s? The endings were not happy, and the people had to die, and something had to go completely wrong. And you even see that happening a lot nowadays, although there's more room to move around. I think she wanted to make it so that, you know, I think she wanted to break that stereotype, and that was a very important thing. So it was more of a statement than, you know, she didn't really have the same freedom that I think might have made the ending more interesting. But yeah, I mean, the writing really picked up. It kind of fits the character Teresa's like mind state, because your kind of first 100 pages, you're like, and it kind of drags, but like also like she's dragging. And then as she begins to fall in love and move forward, it does get a lot more interesting. So, I mean, this is 3 stars for me still, just because I didn't love the whole thing. If you like Patricia Highsmith, check it out. I think I will want to probably read some of her other stuff that's more different. But yeah, probably 3 stars or so. And then The Office of Historical Corrections. I'm almost done with the novella here. Like I said, it's 6 stories and a novella. I'm not loving the novella as much as I had hoped. But in terms of these stories, these were great. I think I had fallen in love so much, and I've heard from people who love her work, Danielle Evans's work, that the novella is the best one. So don't take my word for it at all. It's just, I gotten so used to this shorter, like hopping right in, and there's this long kind of introduction. It almost functions like a novel, and I just wasn't, I'm not so much in the mood for that, but I will finish it. The story, why won't women just say what they want? Oh my God. And if you're interested in this, I did talk about the second and third stories a few videos ago. But why won't women just say what they want? Which is so, I mean, it's a total satire, but it's also, I mean, it's so creative. And essentially what's going on, and you've got to read the stories. I'm not going to go through the whole plot. The basic plot is that an artist disappears for a while, and he's wronged all of these women. And in the story, the women don't get their own names. They get called the long-suffering ex-wife, the on-again, off-again ex of his wayward youth, the intern who left the art world after their summer fling, the woman he asked to back out of a grant they were both up for and ended things as soon as she did. And then this character, which is, I mean, the girl who wondered all those years what to call what had happened between them, because yeah, she had intended to have sex with him, but she hadn't intended it to happen like that, and she hadn't expected him to hurt her, but not notice or care or stop. I mean, it's heartbreaking the way it's arranged, but essentially this guy who has, you know, been able to make justifications and get his way out of all this stuff and just hold this power he has as a very successful artist, somebody who's very successful in his industry, kind of not only has his own personal power, but like the power of society backing him, begins apologizing to all of these girls. I mean, there's like 25. And he does so in a legitimate way, which is kind of surprising them. But there's a secret, hidden, like, artist objective behind all of this. And the part that I really want to read, I will not, because it will give it away. But man, it's a really good story, and you've got to read that. And you've got to read Boys Go to Jupiter, and you've got to read Richard of York Gave Battle in Vain. And you've got to read, oh, I love the first one, Happily Ever After. Just really worth checking out. The Office of Historical Corrections, Daniel Evans, really great book. And then for my like early English literature class, I've been reading this Northern Anthology of English Literature. Most recently, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. We're not reading, well, we did read all of Sir Gawain, but we didn't read all of the Canterbury Tales. I kind of mentioned that I wasn't, you know, enjoying this older stuff, especially the devotional poetry. And I can't say that I enjoy Chaucer or that it's easy to pay attention to, but it is really interesting to see how different he is from everything that came before him in the way he's like characterizing people, the way he's questioning the church at the time, which seems like it must have been a crazy thing to do. The slights he's taking at people, the sort of like gossipy attitude his narrators have. But again, just these descriptions, looking at not only somebody's hair, but their clothes, and describing these anecdotes about how they... So it's interesting because you can kind of just see where the way that we write now comes from. I honestly don't know if he was the first, but the way we're talking about it seems like he is. Somebody please correct me, but that's been interesting, at least. And then Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, if you're going to read anything from, you know, the medieval ages, that is probably the most like fun story. I mean, maybe just look up a summary of it if you don't want to read the whole thing, because it's like it's just like fun, like it's just a cool story. So yeah, that's been going a little better, which I'm happy about. And before I get to Jennifer Egan, I do want to talk about the fact that I am going to probably do like a non-fiction video in the next couple of days, which is going to consist of this Nelson Algren biography, which I'm almost done with. I kind of stopped reading it for a while because it's not essential. My research project doesn't really begin until the summer. But this was really great, and I'm starting a Substack, which there is no need to follow, but I am, if you're interested, I am going to throw a bunch of different essays up there, a bunch of different little thoughts, like kind of just random stuff. I just want to have a place to share my writing. I think that probably the first one I will put, again, hopefully this is out by the time of the video. If it is, I'm going to put the link in the description. I'm sure it's there. One of the essays that I kind of wrote in New York, it's kind of crappy, but also like kind of reflects just what I was thinking about at the time, and that's kind of what I want to use this for. Kind of like a more formal way to talk about books and writing, and I will share some of my fiction and different things that are going on, different updates, random tidbits, but I do have a couple essays in the works. So the one that should be out now is kind of on Algren. More specifically, I can't get the book out because it's under this giant pile that the camera's on, but Entrapment and Other Writings, an essay of his called Do It the Hard Way, which is talking about writing, and that's kind of what my informal essay is on. But again, yes, so nonfiction video coming up soon. Check out the Substack. There's also an essay coming soon that is in relation to this book by Hanif Abdurraqib, which is about a tribe called Quest. It's called Go Ahead in the Rain. I love this cover. Take a second and pause the video and just read that. It's very funny, especially the New York Times sticker. But yeah, all I'll say is I don't know much about A Tribe Called Quest. That's not really my era of music. But the way he writes has me so interested in this book, I cannot put it down. So already would recommend. I'm only like 45 pages in, but would recommend. And I have an essay that I've been kind of putting together on kind of West Coast hip hop, but more recently. Then other nonfiction, I've been reading some of these, Any Person is the Only Self, and then kind of thinking about the larger novel I'm doing, which has a little bit to do with, it's not a novel about an MFA program. I will not do that. But it does have to do with people who are kind of left outside of those sort of programs, if that makes any sense. So I'm reading this, just kind of chunks of it. The Program Era, Post-War Fiction and the Rise of Creative Writing, Mark McGurl. Kind of heavy reading. I'm kind of flipping around back and forth, but that's not too bad. And then some Baldwin essays. So lots of nonfiction coming up soon. And please do check out the Substack if you would like. Oh, and then one last one, which is Under My Light. But it's called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad. And very excited for that. I've been waiting for that for a while. Just got that. Came out the 25th, so 2 days ago. Just got that. And I'm excited to talk about that as well. But anyway, so A Visit from the Goon Squad, which I am 4 chapters into. I'm reading the 5th tomorrow before workshop. Or I'm reading the 5th and 6th, actually, because they're kind of short. Forgot that there's 2 chapters this week. But yeah, so this is fascinating. I will just say, my dad, you'll see if you watch the interview I did with Ricky Thane, where he talks about Visit from the Goon Squad and how much he loves it. And I say, my dad's been trying to get me to read that forever, but I just haven't. And then like 3 days later, literally, I got my assigned readings, and this was the book for my workshop. We never read novels in workshop, so that's really interesting. This is sort of not a novel. Fact check me on this. I've done no research, but my teacher mentioned something about it not selling well originally, and my dad had said that maybe even it was marketed kind of originally as short stories, and then once they changed it to A Visit from the Goon Squad, a novel, as like a marketing tactic, which I don't even think is a lie, because it is a novel. It's just the way that it's constructed. It's like a novel in stories. I think that there's no real rules to a novel, and because of the fact that these are so interconnected, moving back and forth, I don't even know how this comes out of somebody's brain. It is so good. But yes, a novel, it's kind of in stories. We start out with a character, Sasha, who can't stop stealing things from people, and how that kind of comes back to bite her in the ass with this one incident. She mentions very lightly here that she used to work for this big-time music exec who puts gold flakes in his coffee because he thinks his sex drive is too low. So he spends like $8,000 a month on gold flakes and puts that in his coffee while simultaneously spraying pesticides in his armpits as deodorant. So I think he might have his signals crossed a little bit there. But that's just an offhand comment, and you're like, what the hell is she talking about? And then you go to the next story, and it's all about this guy as an adult. You see that he's kind of like faded, like his youth has disappeared, he's got a kid now, and he's kind of stuck, doesn't know what to do. and it just feels like he's at this complete dead end and he's let everything slip through his fingers. Then you go to when he was kind of a kid, and there's like a music manager there who's like 40 years old and is sleeping with one of his friends, the girl he likes actually. So this is like a music manager, kind of like he was. I'm not sure if any of this is making sense. But I mean, I think the girl is 18, but the music manager is like 45, right? So Benny, who's the music manager who Sasha worked for, is now a teenager, and the girl he has a crush on is sleeping with this like 45-year-old man. And then you go to the 45-year-old man, and then you learn all this stuff. Well, he's on a safari with his kids like years before that. So I don't know how this stuff is getting connected or how it's going to come back, but I will just say, I mean, this writing is out of this world good. The insight she has into the way people talk. Yeah, so like one of the music execs is talking to his kid, and the kid is like accidentally revealing that this guy's girlfriend is like maybe cheating on him or whatever, and he doesn't realize that he's revealing that, but he does know that something's landing oddly, and so she like really provides this beautiful insight into that. And when Benny is a child, everybody, it must be the 80s in LA, and there's some descriptions of how him and all his friends are like getting into a punk band, and it's like, what's going on here, right? So where we live in the sunset, the ocean is always just over your shoulder, and the houses have Easter egg colors. But the second Scotty lets the garage door slam down, we're suddenly enraged, all of us. So they all are these like wannabe punks, right? Wannabe punks who aren't actually angry. But then you have this guy Scotty who like might actually be angry, and you begin to see that like he kind of does have the punk attitude to him, but the kids don't really understand, except for this narrator who's just total observation. She doesn't even really interact with the kids like everybody else does. Scotty, in 5th grade, the first time his mom went away, he sat all day on the patch of grass outside his house and stared at the sun. He refused to go to school or come in. His dad sat with him trying to cover his eyes, and after school Jocelyn came and sat there too. Now there are permanent gray smudges in Scotty's vision. He says he likes them. Actually what he says is, I consider them a visual enhancement. We think they remind him of his mom. So his mom has died. And there's a real anger to him, and you'll kind of see it because there's this insane scene where they finally get a gig and he just goes nuts on the stage. Like he's just angry, angry, angry. And they all kind of throw a big tantrum because the crowd doesn't like their music. And then afterwards they're like, yeah, that went well. So it's funny, it's well written, it's beautiful, the scenes are perfect, things are just orchestrated, like the themes that run through, it almost feels like somebody's writing like a well-organized paper, and not in a bad way, in a way that's like, you have to fight to understand what she's actually doing because it's so good, it just flows. Right? Like this isn't one I would super highly recommend analyzing. I have to do it, and we do it in workshop every week, but it's also just perfect. Just soak it in, read it again. Like I'm loving this so far. So I mean, I'm about 100 pages in. It's like 250. There's even this like chapter that's all like a PowerPoint. So I don't know. I'm very excited for the rest of this book. I'm going to cap it off with one scene. It's kind of long, but I want to read it because I think the writing is perfect. And then I will get out of here. So, late at night, when there's nowhere left to go, we go to Alice's house. Scotty drives his pickup, 2 of us squeezed in front with him, blasting bootleg tapes of The Stranglers, Nuns, Negative Trend, the other 2 stuck in back where you freeze all year long, getting tossed in the actual air when Scotty tops at the hills. Still, if it's Benny and me, I hope for the back so I can push against his shoulder in the cold and hold him for a second when we hit a bump. The first time we went to Seacliff, where Alice lives, she pointed up a hill at fog sneaking through the eucalyptus trees and said her old school was up there, an all-girls school where her little sisters go now. K through 6, you wear a green plaid jumper and brown shoes. After that, a blue skirt and white sailor top, and you can pick your own shoes. Scotty goes, can we see them? And Alice goes, my uniforms? But Scotty goes, no, your alleged sisters. She leads the way upstairs, Scotty and Benny right behind her. They're both fascinated by Alice, but it's Benny who entirely loves her. And Alice loves Scotty, of course. Benny's shoes are off, and I watch his brown heels sink into the white cotton candy carpet, so thick it muffles every trace of us. Jocelyn and I come last. She leans close to me, and inside her whisper, I smell cherry gum covering up the 500 cigarettes we've smoked. I can't smell the gin we drank from my dad's hidden supply at the beginning of the night, pouring it into Coke cans so we can drink it on the street. Jocelyn goes, watch, Rhea. They'll be blonde, her sisters. I go, according to who? Rich children are always blonde, Jocelyn goes. It has to do with vitamins. Believe me, I don't mistake that for information. I know everyone Jocelyn knows. The room is dark except for a pink nightlight. I stop in the doorway and Benny hangs back too, but the other three go crowding into the space behind the beds. Alice's little sisters are sleeping on their sides, covers tucked around their shoulders. One looks like Alice, with pale, wavy hair. The other is dark like Jocelyn. I'm afraid they'll wake up and be scared of us in our dog collars and safety pins and shredded t-shirts. I think we shouldn't be here. Scotty shouldn't have asked to come in. Alice shouldn't have said yes, except she says yes to everything Scotty asks. I think I want to lie down in one of those beds and go to sleep. I whisper to Jocelyn as we're leaving the room. Dark hair. She whispers back, black sheep. That is such a perfectly executed scene. It's so perfect. Again, it's kind of hard to talk about all of this, but maybe once I'm finished, I will just try and I'll read my favorite lines or whatever the case may be. But I've annotated a lot of this, so I think I'll try and organize it a little better. But I'm loving this so far. Would really recommend. I will be reading this at a slow pace over the rest of the semester because it's just planned out that way. So this is a book you've been looking to read and you want to read along with me, that'd be awesome. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books before, any of the ones I'm about to read, if you have thoughts about the ones I have read, thoughts about anything. I'm really, really thankful, really grateful to all of you watching. It means a lot. I will have more videos coming soon. The Substack should be up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.